I'm going to show you a tip now for getting a good distribution of fabrics. Once you've got a layout you like, take a photograph of it and then put it into grayscale on your computer, on your iPad, on your phone, whatever you're using. And when the thing is in black, white and grey, you can see really clearly the distribution, whether there's too much dark in one area. Now, this little indigo dog, there's not much contrast between the white and the blue, so it's a little bit grayscale already. But if you were doing a much more colourful dog, patchwork, oh hi Prudence, if it's more colourful, then taking a grayscale picture like this helps you see where the lights and the darks are distributed. Like there's quite a lot of pinwheels there. Well, I can't do anything about that. I've only got about 5 or 6 different fabrics to go at. But anyway, that's a very good tip, putting the thing into grayscale so that you can see you've got a good even distribution and not all the lights at one end and all the darks clustered in the middle or whatever. But now we're going to sew the thing together. So you'll have to forgive the filming of the next sequences because I was pretty much doing it through my iPad that was balanced on top of a thing for an overhead view. So there's another knot again, just a good tacking knot. And these stripy fabrics I've decided to use all the way around the middle of the dog. And I don't mind at all that they don't match up. In fact, I'm going to make sure they don't, so that it looks a little bit funky. Okay, so the accurate squares that you cut will pay off now, because when you put these two together, they are perfectly lined up. And I always do just scooch my needle under the seam like that. Just puts the knot in a neat place. Okay then, so we're going to use a good strong cotton, not something that snaps easily, because you'll see in a minute that I'm actually going to be pulling this quite tightly. And I haven't counted them, but they're probably about 20 stitches along this 1 3/4 inch length here. And so when I put the needle in, I'm feeling for the paper. I'm not going through the paper. That's the important thing. I'm going through the fold where the fabric has been folded over the paper. And so at the end of this project, when I take these squares out, I can use them again, and there shouldn't be any holes or any perforations in the papers at all, because all I'm doing is scooting through the 2 folds at the top there. Now, as I'm holding these together, I'm just checking as I'm coming towards the end that both the ends are lined up, so that it hasn't slipped as I've been stitching it. So sewing these 2 pieces together, this is the first part of making our dog. And when you get to that bit there, I sometimes, well I do, I fold that part over with my thumb and just hold it out of the way. Oh, I can see my thimble lying idle there. And then as I get to the corner, you can see I'm pulling it quite sharply, which is why you need good strong cotton that won't break. And when I get to the corner, I'm going to go once, twice, 3 times over the same part of the corner and then snip that thread off. And now when we open it up, you possibly might see stitches, but you might not. So that's what I want that to look like. So that's our first little couple of pieces sewn together there, and this is the gusset, as I say, and I've already started sewing together one of the sides of the dog. This is the tail and the back leg, and I've sewn those pieces together because what I want to show you next is I like to sew the dog together in strips like this, so that even when it's only 2 or 3 pieces, I sew them in strips. Then I can sew them along the ways and get them all in order that way. So you can see that the stitches are quite even, quite small, and none of the papers will be clipped at all with the needle. So now I've got the next piece. So this is the tail And this is the body, the part of the body now, and the back legs. So this is the first back leg, and there are 5 and 4 squares to sew together here. Okay, so this is the same as we've just done by sewing 2 together, but we're just going to be mindful that the junctions are all lined up. So that's it. We're just going to check again that accuracy with your paper templates will pay off here. Okay then, so exactly the same as before, but there's quite a little bit more to hold now. Apologise for the view. You should see the setup I was trying to film this with. It's quite crazy. Okay, so a couple of stitches through the very end there, because really what we're trying to avoid when we're sewing the pieces together in strips like this is when we come to a junction where 4 squares meet together, we don't want a hole. You want the whole thing, when this dog's finished, to sit together really securely. And so I don't know why, but I edited out that bit. Well, never mind. There'll be another junction to see in a minute. That was a poor bit of editing there, Kate. So you can see that the stitches are small, close together, and quite tight. And then when we open it up and have a look at it, you can see then that the junction where those 4 squares come together, and I pull it like that and like that, there's no hole there. That's what we want to avoid. And now this is 4 squares being sewn onto 5 squares, so it isn't a junction, it's just 3 coming together, isn't it? But I'm still going to sew those last couple of squares together with a couple of good oversewed stitches there. And then snip that off. And that's the back of one side of the dog, his tail and his back leg done. And then we put that together with the rest of the dog. Now I use this polystyrene board. I tell you, it's so good. It's just so helpful just to be able to put the pieces like that and leave them in there. And then I'm going to take the next 2 to sew together, and so on until all the pieces are sewn together. So I'll do that row of 3, then the next row of 3, and just keep stitching them as I go. So there's the whole of the front of that dog done. And it's an obvious thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, just in case anyone lays 2 dogs out, both facing in the same direction. Obviously, one's got to be facing one way and one's got to be facing the other way. I'm sorry if that's obvious. Yeah, but that might be a real shame if you make that mistake. Now, some people have talked about what a great project this is to take when you're out and about on the move. If you haven't got a polystyrene board and you wouldn't want to cart it around with you anyway, this is the way that I use, and I suggest you try. If you want to just take your pieces with you, but know which ones that you're going to be stitching together. Now I'm sticking them back with the pins, but if I wanted to now, I could put 2A there, next is going to be 2B, and so on. You can see what I'm doing. Just on the papers inside, which are going to come out later anyway, I'm going to label them all so that if I was sitting waiting for a dental appointment or something, I could just whip these out and I could sew 2A to 2B without any problem. And so that's one way. I'm going to show you next video. I'm going to show you a big piece that I made that I labelled like this, and it meant that I could take sections of it when I was out and about. It's just a good way to do it. So you devise your own system if this one doesn't work for you. But the letters and the numbers, yeah, I get challenged by this. That's an F, I think, Kate. Yeah. And so then the longest piece is the one with the ear on, and that's going to be 3A, and on we go. So that's just a way that you can take it out and about with you and sew a couple of pieces together, and if you haven't got a polystyrene board. Next time then, we're going to be looking at the gusset and how that fixes on to the main dog. Thanks for watching, guys.